Get in the know. Non-stop Vikings talk. It's Purple Daily on Score North and ScoreNorth.com.
Welcome in to Daily Vikings Entertainment. And this time of year, pretty much daily Vikings speculation as well. Because, gentlemen, it is NFL Combine week, where all of the luminaries inside NFL front offices, NFL agencies, all get together over bourbons in Indianapolis, Indiana. Judd, you've covered the Combine a number of times, right?
Yeah, I covered about 4 or 5 times.
There's a nice little steakhouse down the street.
St. Elmo's, which is so popular and so successful that they actually have like a poor man's version right next door that if you can't get, like if you're not Jerry
Is it
Jones,
like just like an Outback
and like
or
you
what?
can't get in. No, it's like run by the
Applebee's.
same people. It's just cheaper. It's brilliant. They have, I'm not joking, they have one of the most famous shrimp cocktails in America.
Really? At the high level one or the
at the
budget
high level one? The low budget one has again, I think, a knockoff, but the
It's
real
like
one,
two shrimp dangling over a pint glass.
the big one I'm talking about. This is all in shrimp cocktail.
I love shrimps. I'm not a big cocktail sauce though. I don't love the sauce for shrimp
What?
cocktails. No,
I'll
just eat that thing raw.
You just eat the shrimp without
like
the
a
cocktail
psychopath.
sauce.
But yes, that's what I will do. I
like raw shrimp. I'm not against you on that, but I'm not sure about Phil. I love the cocktail sauce.
The cocktail sauce with a little bit of horseradish zing in it is the way to go.
See, I don't even like tartar sauce. Like I'm out on tartar sauce. I love fish, but like fish sauce. I don't know what the word I'm looking for is. Fish sauce. I'm not in on that. Not in on dipping condiments with my fish.
I feel like tartar sauce is more hated by people than cocktail sauce.
That's probably right.
Tartar sauce is also just sort of unnecessary a lot of times.
Yes.
Like you only use it with fried fish. You already have fried fish and you're dipping it in
Good point.
This sort of mayo-based thing. Anyways, welcome to Purple Daily here. We just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die. The show is presented in part by our friends at TCL, now an official partner of the National Football League and one of the world's best-selling consumer electronics brands. They have a new lineup of award-winning TVs delivering the most entertainment with stunning resolution, all at an affordable cost. Enjoy more of the things you love with TCL. So, all right, admission here from us. The Vikings general manager, Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, spoke to media today. This is in Indianapolis, right? He spoke to anyone and everyone that wanted to gather around him. And he's only done like 2 or 3 of these media scrums since that USA Today article came out where he said, you never want to go full Rams. He got real chummy with the USA Today reporter, and it kind of scared him from doing media. So this is a rare Kwesi appearance, and Judd and I both missed it. Judd was on the Tom Bernard show. You might have caught some of it.
I caught the first part of it.
I was in a Score North sales meeting, and so I have not heard any of these clips. So we're going to basically ingest. Declan has cut up 6 relevant clips from Kwesi covering different topics, and we're just going to play them on the show here and react to them. Also, later in the show, Godfather Mock has spoken for the second time in 2023. A Mel Kiper mock is on the horizon later in the show.
And he's coming with trades.
He has trades for the first time. Yeah.
Mel.
Yeah. So, Dex, you take this. We have 6 clips. You start wherever you want to here, and we will just react to each one of these.
Okay, let's start here. Let's start with Kwesi's thoughts on the Brian Flores hire.
How passionate he is. He's just an energetic, great. He fits so well in our culture, where our culture is positivity, it's passionate, and he fits really well into that. We need the leader, we need the football mind, we need the developer, we also need the personnel guy. He has a really extensive personnel background. So it's not just about the players we draft this year or in free agency. It's about reshaping our vision for the roster going forward, not just to compete in today's NFL, but where it could go. He's the type of thinker that I need, combined with Kevin, that'll help us do that.
Before we dissect those comments, Judd, what did you think of Kwesi's outfit there? What?
That's fine.
It's that innovative coat without the sleeves, right?
Yeah, it's that coat without the sleeves.
I thought this was fine. It's fine. I like the look. I like you get the shirt on and then you get the coat without the sleeves on.
The vest, yeah, that Vikings
I like
vest.
I like the look. I think he looks good.
The Vikings vest over the light blue dress shirt there, or the coat without the sleeves.
I think it's a quarter zip. I think it's actually like a quarter zip that's underneath the vest because it's like an athletic material.
You know what, Dex? When you exchange your vows with your lovely gal, I'm going to show up in a nice shirt with a Vikings quarter zip.
It is a black tie apparel. I just want to let you know it is a formal, very formal wedding.
Well, yeah, you'll think I'm going to show up in a black tie apparel.
A vest for Judd could actually be considered formal.
Thank you, Phil. Yeah. Phil knows me very well.
Not his Flyers Eastern Conference hockey jersey that he likes to wear. Basically,
Judd wore ketchup-stained sweatpants to our golf show, Purple Daily Town Hall on Saturday.
And I was accosted before I left home. Are you really going to go like that? She said. I said, absolutely.
Absolutely.
And then I said, bye, see ya.
So, all right. So Kwesi, very high on Brian Flores. I would love to know more about that whole process, right? Was he number one on their list? But what did you make of just he's still in the honeymoon period here, thinking about what I think is an excellent hire at defensive coordinator.
First off, I would like to apologize. The train is going by, and so you are going to get the full train experience. But I'm going to talk over it, so I obviously am not going to mute myself. Here's what I took away from that comment.
It's Brian Asamoah coming across the middle.
Yeah, that's what that is. Exactly right. That's a train. Bye, Eric Hendricks. Bye, Dalvin. Bye, Adam. They're taking the train out of Egan. What I made of that comment specifically is this. Kwesi is, and I'm not saying he's trying to dump on Donatel, but it's very clear when he's talking about basically he can help me with personnel decisions. I think what Kwesi is saying is we're going to have a better defensive draft this year because I think I'm going to have a guy in my room that knows more about defense.
Yeah.
So I actually take that as him, if not deflecting, saying there's going to be a better plan defensively to draft guys and that there's going to be a plan now in place where we're going to be more on the same page to build a defense just from the draft that's going to be more along the lines of what we want. That's my takeaway.
I believe the word he used was thinker, right? At the end of that quote, he called it, it'll be nice to have a thinker. Mm-hmm. I think he said thinker, like Brian Flores. And sometimes you can interpret that like you just said. So was Ed Donatel not a thinker? Or, I mean, obviously he wasn't much of a thinker, or he would put the same thought into the scheme every single week. But it does kind of feel like now that we've experienced a full year of Donatel, and Judd, you covered him 20 years ago for the Star Tribune when he was a Packers defensive coordinator.
Yep.
So you have some experience. He can fit in the bin of really nice guy. Alex Boone told stories about, because Donatel was on one of the coaching staffs that Boone was on the offensive side of the ball, but a guy that invite you over to the backyard grill and hand you a cold beverage and, hey, how's the family, right? Like that's easy Ed, right? Sounds like a super nice guy.
Yep.
But this is about winning football games and terrorizing opposing offenses and being clever and creative and disguised. And the Vikings defense was none of those things. So upgrade.
And there's no question the Vikings did not get what they expected. Like, there is no question in my mind. The Vikings, I think that at the end of the day, Kevin O'Connell was as surprised by the lack of creativity. The fact that O'Connell, in the last quarter of the season, had to call Ed in and say, you're really way too predictable. That was never the intention. So I think that the feeling now is that the Vikings are getting what they're going to get, a guy that they expect, as opposed to a guy that sells a vision that clearly didn't turn out to be true. And Kwesi is, his background does not scream identifying players through scouting. So, if Brian Flores can come in and say, this guy, and this guy fit what we need to do, what I'm going to do, Kwesi's not going to say, hey, dude, I got ideas too. He's going to say, thank you very much.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, what's next on the Kwesi docket here, Dex?
All right, let's just stick on the defensive side. This is what Kwesi said when asked about the status of Dalvin Tomlinson, whose void year, I believe, was pushed out a month, so they still have another basically month to work out a new contract. So this is the new, this is his update on Dalvin Tomlinson.
Yeah, look, we love Dalvin. Same thing. Whenever you have good players in your building, good people, you want to do everything your best to keep them. Obviously, we have a lot of decisions to make, so we're trying to buy ourselves a little bit more time. But if he's listening, if he comes back, I'll make sure I get him my shoe plug that he always asks me for. He's a great guy, great player, and we love him.
Do you think that the Vikings want Dalvin Tomlinson back on a fairly? It won't be like a bank breaking Aaron Donald contract or anything, but it'll be, my guess is $10 million a year on a multi-year deal for a 29-year-old. He's a good, solid defensive tackle.
So his just to clear the void your conversation up, it was moved to March 15th. It was supposed to be, I think, at the end of February, and it's been moved to March 15th. I don't know on this one. They're number one. This team needs to get far more of a push from the interior defensive line. The other thing is what I think we don't know, and that response from Kwesi was very, sort of just milquetoast. The other thing we don't know, to go back to the first clip that we played, is how Brian Flores feels about Tomlinson. Because I think Dalvin Tomlinson, I don't want to say he's going to be super expensive, but I don't think he's going to be cheap. And so that's going to be a very important decision. I think he's done a nice job. I certainly wouldn't object or criticize them for bringing him back. But I could see Brian Flores saying we either need to allocate some of the money that Dalvin Tomlinson wants elsewhere, or say, I've got a better idea about a player there.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think that response to me was basically, we love him as a person, which is code for, yeah, we really haven't decided yet if he's coming back as a player.
I feel like if the fact they pushed out the void year, that they're open to bringing him back. Because if they didn't want to bring him back, if they definitely were completely out, they would have just, right, they would have said goodbye. I think it was last week when that first void was supposed to kick in. So I don't know if that, to Judd's point, is that Flores also still evaluating a bit? Is that Flores pushing, saying, no, I want this guy, so let's continue to have some conversations and work out a new deal? I personally think he's going to be back. That's where I lean on it. I think just from the framework of what they're doing here and kind of the little bit of what they're saying about him, I'm going to guess that he is indeed back and they're trying to work out a better deal.
Yeah, I think the problem if you don't, I think he's back too. The problem if you don't bring him back is look at all the holes you already have without counting the cuts. There's going to be, you're probably going to have two lines. Right now, you could say that Kendricks and Hicks are under contracts. You have three cornerbacks coming off your books right now you have to account for. You have a center coming off your books you have to account for. And then you likely have two linebackers, maybe a wide receiver. These are all starting positions that you have to figure out. So
right.
We haven't talked about the edge rushers, which we did in our, last week we remade the roster. But Zadarius Smith or Danielle Hunter might be gone. So if you're going to add Dalvin Tomlinson to the bin of, okay, well, he's gone. Now we have to figure out defensive tackle. And yeah, you might have a couple bucks coming your way. But if you say goodbye, he's still on the hook for it. Makes sense for the Vikings. Why would you say goodbye and still pay $7.5 million to the cap when you can just figure out a new contract for like 2 years of guaranteed money? So unless Dalvin Tomlinson doesn't want to play in Minnesota anymore or wants to play ridiculous hardball, I do think a deal gets done. By the way, according to Pro Football Focus, he did have the best pressure rate of his entire career in that system. So he did have 30 total pressures. He wasn't on the level of some of the top edge rushers that get 100 pressures or 80 or 90, but he did have 30 total pressures in about 300 pass rush snaps, which is pretty darn good for a non-Aaron Donald interior defensive lineman. So if they do stick with a 3-4, which they are with Brian Flores, I think Dalvin continues to thrive and get some pressure. But you're right. Like outside of Zadarius Smith and Danielle Hunter, whether it's interior or edge, they don't have a lot of other guys that can just get after the quarterback and make them uncomfortable.
Yeah, and he also, so I think the one thing that could throw a fly in the ointment of his return as well is this. If his agent is approached, oh my goodness, he shouldn't be. But if he's approached by teams who are like, we really like this guy, and we think that he'd be a better fit in our defense, and by the way, we'll pony up. Because the thing is, the Vikings have a very difficult decision here with any money that they give out. Because again, if they have their sights set on upgrading, which they have to, if you give Dalvin Tomlinson a contract that matches, I don't know, just take your pick, what the Houston Texans are going to give him, that's going to take away from elsewhere too. So that's where this whole math game and chess game of trying to put especially the defense together gets to be very intriguing. Because if you want to pursue a cornerback in free agency, that's not going to be cheap. So you're definitely going to have to free up cash there. And the exercise that we went through, Phil, we definitely did that. But they might say, Dalvin Tomlinson is worth this amount. And if Dalvin Tomlinson comes in and says, oh my God, look at this offer I got from the Falcons, that could change their philosophy, because I don't know that they're going to pay him what another team possibly might.
And it is, with Harrison Phillips and with Dalvin Tomlinson, even with Tomlinson having a career season, in terms of pressures from the interior, what's the average on that? He was getting like 2 pressures a game from the interior. And the best in the NFL from the interior are getting 4, 5 pressures. I mean, hell, Chris Jones in Kansas City had 97 pressures, I believe, largely from the interior. So, that's kind of the bar. He's good. Harrison Phillips is also good, but they're more just sort of space-eating, run-stuffing guys that can get some pressure. So who's actually pushing that pocket toward a quarterback is the biggest question.
Tomlinson's PFF grade against the run was not great. Is that correct?
So his tackling grade is sometimes not great.
Okay.
But overall, he's a well above average graded player across the board, except his tackling grade can be low sometimes. So,
okay.
All right, let's hear from Kwesi again here, Dex.
All right, we'll go to the offensive side of the ball, and this is his answer when asked about the status of Justin Jefferson. Not in this clip. He does mention earlier before it that it is a high priority, but this is the status of Justin Jefferson's next contract.
It's the win. When I met him, the first time I met him, actually, we walk in the building, and I made a joke about something else that was happening with the wide receiver at the time about their contract, and I was like, I just laughed. I say, we won't have any issues. And he says, I just want to put wins on the board. Didn't smile. It wasn't really like this ha-ha thing. It was the way he said it. That's the guy you see on Sunday who won't turn down double teams, whole defense designed to stop him. He's trying to put the Minnesota Vikings on his back. He wants to win a championship. When you have people like that in your building, try everything you can to not let them out.
He wants to win games, but for like $35 million a year, I would guess, right? This is much like Kirk 5 years ago. This is his first chance to go get paid at a top level and set a bar. So nice that they had that little run in. I'm sure those guys have a good relationship, but at the end of the day, the market will speak when it comes to what Justin Jefferson's going to make.
Yeah, and I wouldn't use the word try. I would use the word it's just going to get done. It's going to hurt financially. But I do not. Kwesi at his end of the season press conference called this a champagne problem to, I believe, borrow from the catalog of T. Swift. And the champagne problem is true if you're Justin Jefferson. For the Vikings, it's a real problem because you're going to have to take an enormous receiver contract and fit that in. That being said, and I do think that there will probably be some bumps here. I don't know if they'll be reported or not, but I don't see any way that this doesn't get done. Do you? I just don't see any way. We could talk about should they trade him, blah, 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 which is fun to talk about, but I just think it gets done.
Do you think does it, I have a dumb question for you. Does it have to what if it doesn't get done this offseason? It could still get done next offseason, right? But then you would just be a year closer to, then they'd franchise tag him in 2 years. They don't want to go through that whole dance.
Exactly. And the issue is my understanding of how the contract works is if it gets done now, you can now take a bit of the salary cap hits and things starting now and spread them out. If you wait, it obviously all goes on that contract, that next contract. So I think it behooves everyone to get this done. And I don't know that there's any real point in not getting it done. He's a star player. It's like Kaprizov. You're not going to be like, Kirill, we're going to play hardball with you. You're going to say, Kirill, thank you very much. Please sign on the line. He'll say, no, I want more. You'll say, okay, Kirill.
If the Vikings, if the Vikings as a franchise were let's say they were where the Texans are right now, or pick some dumpster fire team at this point, Falcons or whatever, and you didn't see a nucleus forming for the next 3 to 5 years, I think other franchises, I would advocate you should probably go get a haul of draft picks for Justin Jefferson because, he's just going to sit there on a bad team and maybe even add a win or two to a team that should be actively trying to be the number one pick. The Vikings are not in that spot. The Vikings, look at the nucleus. We've talked about this, but when you have Jefferson, Hawkinson, Darisaw, Brian O'Neill, half the offense is mid to early 20s, ready to grow together, going to become more expensive in a couple years. But I am interested in that nucleus, 2023, 24, 25, 26. And so there's really, I know we've kind of flirted with some people have asked about, should they consider trading him for a haul of picks, like what they could get for him? But then what are we doing here?
Right.
Then what do you, okay, then where do you draw that line? Okay, you're going to trade Jefferson for a haul of picks. Well, then what's the point of extending TJ Hawkinson? Yeah. What's the point? what's the point of having Christian a franchise left tackle on a rookie scale contract? So,
and are
I
you
agree.
really?
You pay him, they'll pay him.
And are you really going to, like, if you took him to market and shopped him, are you really going to get what you think is a completely fair return for a receiver? My guess is probably no. Because, like, I'm thinking multiple first round picks. I'm thinking a trade that would, because I mean, those are the type of trades that you can lose because it's a star player. And I just don't think that there's enough that you're going to get back where anyone, including the Vikings, are going to be like, you know what, that's a really good deal.
I will say this, if I'm him, I definitely want to know who's throwing me the football, right? And I'm going to want to know, so what is he, 25 or whatever right now, 24?
Yeah,
or 23? I
think it might be 23.
So he's going to want to know who's throwing me the football throughout the duration of this contract. It's going to be Kirk almost for sure in 2023. And he knows he can put up crazy productivity with Kirk. I don't think you'd want to create a bunch of uncertainty. I don't think you'd want to create a huge gap between, okay, we plan to say goodbye to Kirk, and now we kind of shrug. We don't really know what's going to happen. That's why in a perfect world, you would have Kirk's successor on the team for a year, like Mahomes behind Alex Smith. There's other examples. So that Jefferson can get to know that guy in practice off the field and get comfortable with him for the transition.
Right.
I don't think I would craft my entire offseason and draft strategy around making Jefferson happy because that's how you fall into a bin of mistakes. But I think you should be mindful that, you don't want to run into a Stephon Diggs situation. And he was more upset about the offensive scheme, I think. I don't think he was pissed about Cousins as much. But you just want to be mindful that you got this Cadillac here, you got this Ferrari or whatever, Lamborghini. You don't want to leave it out in the snow in the winter without a covering.
23, by the way, which is unbelievable.
23. So he'll be 25 years old basically when that contract hits.
Yeah.
And it'll probably be probably 4 or 5 years of guarantees.
Yeah.
So he'll just be turning 30. Amazing.
Good
Tyreek Hill's contract started at age 29 and I think carries through like age 33 or something. All right, let's hear from Kwesi again here.
All right, so this is a longer clip. He was asked about evaluating quarterback play, and he gets very, very nerdy here, just FYI. But this is how he evaluates quarterback play.
Let's go all the way numbers. Let's go full numbers. So we talk about necessary and sufficient conditions, right, in math. And so a necessary condition is having a starter level quarterback, a quarterback of above certain threshold. Now that doesn't mean for sure you're going to win. That's not the only thing you need, but that is one of the things you need, right? So having a good level quarterback is a necessary condition. Kirk quarterback meets that threshold. So we know that. Okay, well now how do you build the rest of the team around him to make sure that you can win in that way? Different quarterbacks require different things around him, but we know that for sure he meets that threshold. How long does he meet that threshold? Those are things we got to answer. Is there a chance to add somebody maybe with different skill sets? Those are all questions we got to answer, so there's not one right way, but I do know one thing. I know he is good enough. He meets that first threshold, and that's a question that a lot of people can't answer with a yes, so we got to make sure that we treat that in the proper importance that it is.
What are your thoughts?
Oh, I love this
the way
answer.
Thinks,
okay, let's parse apart what a man who knows how to use his words says, because I love this. First of all, am I correct here, or am I just misinterpreting this? Did he call him Kirk quarterback?
Yeah, I think he got a little ahead of himself.
Okay, and he meant Kirk Cousins? But I just love that. Okay, Kirk quarterback. Yes. Like, that's a great way to describe these guys who are commodities, right? Like, he is Kirk quarterback. He's not Kirk Cousins.
Harrison safety.
Yeah, Harrison safety. I mean,
Duke cornerback.
Yes, I love that.
Chandon
Dalvin
slot.
running back. Dalvin defensive tackle. Eric linebacker. Not gonna work here much longer.
By the way, the Vikings, as you said that, just wished Eric Kendricks a happy birthday on social media. So happy birthday, Eric. All right, let's talk about that contract now, guy.
Yeah, exactly. So the first thing that I heard there, and I'd be curious to get your takes on this too, but just to start the conversation, the first thing that I heard is meets that threshold. Now, Kwesi is a guy who has like tiered off expectations, right? Because he's a very clear thinker. So there's like, okay, failure to meet threshold. In the middle, there is meets threshold. Then there is the group that exceeds threshold.
And then there's the other variables of how long will they be at each threshold?
Yes.
Keep
going. This is
how
great.
much do you need to build around that player to win the games that you're looking to win? It's a matrix. Patrick Mahomes is at the top threshold. You still need things around him to win a Super Bowl, obviously. You need Travis Kelce. You need an offensive line. But you need less around Mahomes on offense to score 30 points a game than you do around a Kirk Cousins, for instance.
Correct.
That's kind of that's how I view his little matrix speech.
I view it as this. He is saying that we have a sufficient quarterback who meets our threshold, but he is leaving the door open, and he should be, for he and Kevin O'Connell to find a quarterback that can exceed it.
Yeah,
and
is there room to add someone with a different skill set?
Exactly.
I believe is how he put it.
Like that in no way, just to be clear, and I think we all agree on this, unless something really surprising happens, Kirk Cousins is going to be the starting quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings in 2023. So nobody's debating that. Like, it's fun to talk about trades and stuff, but that's the reality in which we sit here today as the combine begins. But in no way was that a complete endorsement. That was a really interesting, good response to what are you looking for at the position, which is why I love the term Kirk quarterback, because Kirk quarterback meets the threshold, but he doesn't necessarily like
Kirk O'Chains exceeds the threshold.
That's right.
But what percentage of the time are you going to get Kirk O'Chains versus Kirk quarterback?
Correct. So I don't hear that as any type of criticism, but I also don't listen to that and hear a ringing endorsement of this is our guy, which I find to be very intriguing. And so I think that was about as honest, like if you read between the lines a little bit, I think that was about as honest assessment of the position as you can possibly give. If Patrick Mahomes were the Vikings quarterback, I guarantee you, his response would have been much more personalized and different, and well, it should have been.
Yeah. I think he would have called him Patrick quarterback. I think that's probably what his org chart looks like.
I'm not even criticizing him. I love that. I love that.
Cap guy.
Yeah.
Yep. Kevin Coach.
John PR director.
He's just a cyborg. Yeah. Must release Kendricks today. Must release Kendricks today.
Speaking of cyborgs, Jud's been a cyborg when it comes to keeping the weight off over the past 18 months or so, thanks to our friends at Livia.
And they have definitely helped me. Look at the guy on the left. Look at the guy on the right. And here's the best part. So it was more than a year ago now that I dropped 40 pounds off my frame. And guess what? We've all lost weight before, but there's a very important question that I have for you. If you've lost weight before with a program, have you kept it off? That is the type of help that you are going to get here, because the best part is the maintenance phase, which helps you stay thin. And guess what? Your weight concern problems are gone, a thing of the past. Join today. Get 8 weeks for free. That is correct. 8 weeks for free. There have been a ton of folks from our PD family, and we appreciate you all who have joined, who've had the same results that I did, and who have said that it is fantastic. Livia is for them. 855-GO-LIVEA, Livia.com. LIVEA.com. Voted Minnesota's best weight loss program, Livia.com. 8 weeks free. You can't go wrong.
You know, Kwesi talks a lot about culture and just the building blocks for sustained success in the National Football League. Well, Federated Insurance, which has been around for even longer than the NFL, since 1904, they also have cornerstones and framework for their culture, which is grounded in equity, integrity, teamwork, and respect. And those four cornerstones create the foundation that supports all interactions and decision-making. Federated applies these to their work with your business. If you're looking for a great partner on the insurance side that can help you navigate the choppy waters of running a business, Federated's here to help. All sorts of resources at federatedinsurance.com, where it's our business to protect yours. All right, a couple more clips from Kwesi here, speaking at the NFL Combine. What's next, Declan?
All right, let's go to the status of Dalvin Cook.
Starts with having a great player, great leader. Otherwise, we're just going to try and the NFL, you have a lot of constraints, salary cap, different things, and we're trying to figure out how we can operate in those things. But you always start with a great player, a great leader, and we'll go from there.
We'll go from there.
Not exactly ringing endorsement.
This is the first one where it kind of feels like he's definitely going to, there's no reason for him not to pump the tires and praise players, right? but there was a little honesty in there because he alluded himself to the salary cap. Oh, yeah, we got to consider the salary cap. Kwesi doesn't strike me with his analytical background, his roots in asset valuation, right? He's looking at all these positions on an NFL roster, and he's not ranking pay a running back top dollar among the top 3 things that you're supposed to do, right? So paying a running back like Dalvin Cook a bunch of money, just like paying a running back like Adrian Peterson 10 years ago a bunch of money, is a luxury if you can afford it. But if you're trying to build your trenches, if you're trying to build your defense back up from being 31st in yardage, do you have the luxury to pay a running back whatever it is, $12 or $14 million to the salary cap? I don't think so.
2 things come to mind here. First of all, Dex, did he ever say Dalvin Cook's name in that entire
So
clip?
it's actually really funny.
Like
before that clip, someone asked about the status of Dalvin, and he initially goes, Dalvin Cook or Dalvin Tomlinson?
Yeah.
Because he wasn't sure, because both Dalvins are kind of in this weird little limbo phase, right? Which, Dalvin Cook, Dalvin Tomlinson, and then he went in that answer about Dalvin Cook that we just played.
Because, it's intriguing to me, just trying again to read between the lines, that Dalvin Tomlinson was mentioned. Love the guy. I'll talk about his shoes. Dalvin Cook was like this very vague.
Well, he praised Dalvin Cook at the beginning, called him a great leader, great person.
Yeah, I just find it interesting that he didn't. I think he didn't.
He didn't talk about his shoe connection with Dalvin.
I think he didn't.
They're not tight.
personalize
They don't have
it
the shoe connection
as much.
That's
But
big
anyway,
time.
here's the second thing. So, the Athletic had a piece going into the combine about 5 things that the Vikings, are going to have to deal with, and within that, one of the things was the fact that the rushing game last year in the National Football League became more prevalent than it has been in years. It became more of teams' offenses, in part because I think teams are trying to stop the pass and they're not as big up front, and so teams are tempted to run more. But I don't think that means Dalvin Cook has to come back, and here's why. The philosophy of how the run game is used should not be misconstrued with the need to pay one player a ton. So I don't think that is changing. I don't think now if you have a guy who is a Swiss Army knife, that's one thing. So he can catch the ball, he can run the ball, he's sort of a hybrid. But if you're talking about a traditional running back, I don't think we should confuse the potential resurgence of the run game with, well, now I'm going to go get a running back. Yeah. So I don't think those 2 things are the same, which is why I still think there's a very good chance Dalvin Cook is gone.
Also, so again, according to Pro Football Focus, 62 qualified running backs last year. Dalvin was graded 46th out of 62.
Yeah.
Alex Madison was graded 40th, so neither one of those guys was very high up. Now, Dalvin, because he still had all sorts of carries, wound up over 1,000 yards. You look at just sort of the back of the football card numbers, and you'd say, whatever it was, 1,200 yards, and I think he had 10 touchdowns or something. But as you dig a little deeper, he's just even like yards after contact per attempt. He's no longer in the top 15 in that category. The breakaway stuff, he's no longer anywhere near the top in that category. So he's not cooked, no pun intended, but he's definitely regressing in a lot of areas that maybe don't show up in the total yardage. And his age would also suggest, plus injury history, and now he's having another shoulder procedure. This is such a great time. I know Judd doesn't think there is, but if there's a team out there that says, you know what, we'll give you a 4th-round pick for him because it's the final piece to our offensive puzzle. Dolphins, Bills come to mind. I think you just take it and you run to the bank as fast as you can.
Oh, yeah, but if you don't get that, I still think he should be gone. I want his salary off my books.
So you're cutting, if you can't trade him, you're cutting him for sure?
Yeah, I'm not bringing him
I
back
would
at
too.
that salary. Sorry, I just can't do it.
I think I would too. All right, one more clip from Kwesi Adofo-Mensah here.
So this is Kwesi on the idea of trading in your division, the pros and the cons of that.
My needs might be more current. His needs might be future. So you can come together and trade a player for draft picks and have that make sense. There's no reason that you need to run people over or whatever. I plan on being in this business more than 1 year. I want to be able to pick up the phone and call people and do those things. So that's how I dealt in this business. That's how I dealt in Wall Street. I wasn't the guy that was going to call people up and try and see when they were vulnerable or convince them to do something they want to do. I have a vision of what I think the player value is or whatever, and I'm trying to do that. And if you have your vision and that can work, then let's meet together in the middle. If not, then we'll go our separate ways and do all alternatives.
What do you think of that? I think he should be looking to fleece, and I think he should be looking to burn more bridges. I'm not going to lie. Go fleece the idiot GMs in the NFL Fantasy League.
Yeah, I wonder how close that response was to how he really thinks, because clearly you're not going to say, heck yeah, we get a tight end, a really good tight end from a division opponent. They're idiots, and we took it in a second.
It is crazy that his two biggest trades have come with the Lions, right, in the division.
Yeah.
The big draft, the first round
Draft night?
trade, moving back 20 spots, and then the T.J. Hockenson trade.
Yeah, and I'm thinking to myself that there's a very good chance that the Vikings won trade 2 and that the Lions will ultimately win trade 1.
That's probably fair. Well, you can. Are you making that decision based on if is it Jamison Williams?
Yeah.
I think you almost have to make the decision now without knowing if the player pans out.
Well, the fact that you got nothing from Scene, like that you didn't consider him starting material at safety, is disturbing to me personally. But I also think that the Lions got a player that would look really good in purple right now.
Well, we'll know a lot more if Lewis Scene explodes under Brian Flores and he comes back healthy. Then okay. If his leg doesn't explode,
well, I mean,
after
what happened to him, I'm very concerned. Boom.
You know what's exploding before we get to a Mel Kiper mock draft here? The new Tom Bernard morning show. And it's exploding, I think, because you and I make daily appearances at 9:15. We actually went, had a little happy hour with Tom and some other friends of the show last night. So if you haven't checked it out yet, one of the legendary figures in Minnesota morning radio, he's live at tombernardshow.com, 7 to 10 a.m. every morning and via podcast, tombernardshow.com. And you can hear Score North sports updates, which actually, so I'm 9:15 every Monday and Friday.
Sports updates.
You're Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We literally spent 10 minutes talking about Metrodome trough urinals on Monday. So
yeah, we talked about bars.
There you go. So, and once in a while, he'll slip a Kirk Cousins or a Twins take in there. But
yeah, he does love baseball, and he praised Dex. He said Declan's such a nice guy, blah blah blah, but he looks 11 years old.
Yeah,
that's okay.
I said that's not fair. I said he's 14 or 15, and
We're not
say
sure.
The good thing is this, or the bad thing. I said, Tom, the guy doesn't gain weight ever. It's incredible. Guys like me and Tom, a little bigger. It's harder not to gain the weight.
Tom looks great, actually. I think.
He does.
Tom's been keeping himself.
I'm just saying, Dex is a very thin guy, and he's 30, so he's not that young. It's impressive. Or in my end, I end up being envious of that because you can
that hamster wheel is only going to spin for a certain amount of time. I mean, I'm built like my mother and her brothers, so I know eventually that hamster wheel gene.
Okay.
At least you've already cut out the tartar sauce, so that should help you. So TomBernardShow.com for the all-new revamped Tom Bernard morning show.
I want a mock.
All right, boys. We have one here from the Godfather himself.
All right.
It's our mock draft update, our mock draft roundup. So far, we've done 20 of these. And again, more than half of them have cornerbacks going to the Vikings. Mel Kiper with his second mock draft of the 2023 calendar year, and this one includes trades. He feels comfortable doing trades, unlike the first one. So he had Emmanuel Forbes, cornerback, Mississippi State, going to the Vikings the first time around in January. I have not gone through that. Have you guys looked at this yet? Because I have not.
I did.
Declan cheated. Okay, you did?
Yep.
I cheated too.
So this is a surprise to me. I have not seen this yet. We're going to go through it together.
Okay.
He's got the Texans moving up one spot to pick Bryce Young with the number 1 overall selection. And what does he have for the does he have the actual trade in here somewhere?
To do this deal, moving up from number 4 to 2, the Colts are going to give up the number 35 overall selection along with a few more. They have an extra third in the 2024.
The Texans, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So the Texans take Bryce Young. And then we have another trade. So you're looking at the second trade here. So this is now the Colts moving. So the Bears are trading twice. The Colts are now moving up to number 2. That was the trade you just read for C.J. Stroud.
Mm-hmm.
And then he has Will Anderson Jr. going to the Cardinals. And then the Bears still getting Jalen Carter, number 4, after 2 trades, which is the guy that most people have them projected to take number 1.
Yes.
Amazing. All right, now we get another projected trade here from Mel. Wow. I feel like Mel refused to do trades up until a few years ago, and now he's got 3 trades in the top 10.
I think you're right. I think he balked at trades for a long time. Well, we don't know. I mean, we don't know. It's like, Mel, everyone is doing trades. All right, I got some trades.
And Mel, who cares, dude? You're just here to create draft content. So go have fun with it. He has the Panthers trading up with the Seahawks into the 5 spot and then drafting Will Levis. So 3 quarterbacks all via trade off the board in the top 5.
I think he's right.
Lions taking Christian Gonzalez, the first cornerback. No, we have a little run on cornerbacks here. Devin Witherspoon to the Raiders at 7. Interesting. Okay, Seahawks, even after trading, they're in the 9 slot here where Carolina was. They take Anthony Richardson as a potential quarterback of the future.
Which means that Geno Smith might not be back.
Or
You're
maybe
going to have to sign him to a multi-year contract, and if you're going to draft a first-round quarterback, you're not signing him to a multi-year contract.
Well, Mel speculates you could slap the franchise tag on Geno Smith, pay him like $35 million, play him for 1 season, and have Richardson sit until 2024.
Ooh, okay, interesting.
If you're Geno Smith, there's probably worse things you could do than play 1 year of football for $35 million or whatever the franchise tag is.
All right.
We're going to scroll here. Some offensive linemen, a couple edge rushers, a little offensive lineman run. First receiver off the board, 14 to the Patriots. And this is an interesting one. I don't think we've seen this variation of the receiver order. He's got Jackson Smith-Njigba going to the Patriots as the first wide receiver. Packers take Michael Mayer, the tight end from Notre Dame. Joey Porter Jr. to the Steelers. So a bunch of cornerbacks off the board. Emmanuel Forbes to the Buccaneers at 19. Into the 20s here. Second receiver off the board, Jordan Addison to the Chargers at 21. I don't love the way this is playing out for the Vikings here, to be honest with you.
Nope.
Then the Ravens take Zay Flowers at 22. So now you have 3 receivers off the board and a bunch of cornerbacks off the board. But there's some meat and potatoes out here still. But that doesn't stop Mel Kiper from giving the Vikings a cornerback. From Maryland, Deonte Banks. New mock, same position, he writes. New defensive coordinator Brian Flores wants to be aggressive, but he needs the cornerbacks to do that, even if free agent Patrick Peterson returns. The 6'2" Banks is coming off a breakout season in which he locked down opposing wideouts, often in man-to-man coverage, and had 8 pass breakups and a pick. His tape is impressive, and I've heard he's going to run in the low 4.3 range in the 40 at the combine. That's elite for his size. Andrew Booth Jr., a second-round pick last year, should be in the mix for more snaps, but Banks has number 1 corner potential. All right, your thoughts?
Oh, boy. I mean, it's a position of need. Again, if it gets addressed, if they sign one of the free agents that we've discussed, cornerback, in March, do you do that? Do you take a corner still, first round, like that?
Man.
Like if Joey Porter Jr. free falls, then I think the answer is yes. But like, do you take a guy who might, he might be like that always scares me when there is like, well, he's the last of the best, so yeah,
I would say it's so hard because on one hand you could say, well, so Cam Dantzler wasn't drafted by Kwesi, so we don't really know fully what he thinks of Dantzler. Dantzler was also a 3rd-round pick. He's not like a blue chip. No, he wasn't ever supposed to be a 1st-round draft pick. He had a good season a couple years ago, but let's not pretend like Cam Dantzler is going to be, a shutdown corner. He did pop up in some of the grades a couple years ago, and he's a good player. But they drafted under Kwesi 2 cornerbacks pretty early, like, a Caleb Evans they traded up for, and then Andrew Booth Jr. was early 2nd round.
Yep.
So what do they think of those players' ability to bounce back from injury? Are those guys fighting for starting spots? Are they just depth? Do the Vikings think they have to start from scratch with starting outside cornerbacks? That's what I want to know. So my gut says if they do, let's say they sign a 26-year-old in free agency, and we've thrown a bunch of names out there, I think it's a lot less likely they then, with those young guys on the roster already, then spend a 1st-round pick also on a cornerback.
What concerns me about this mock draft in particular is it feels like drafting a cornerback would be sort of we have to do it, not we really like this guy. Like if the run on cornerbacks that Mel predicts doesn't occur, then I'm fine with it. Like if you get one of the top 3 or something, and you probably won't, but that changes how I think about it. But if it's the old, oh my God, we said we're going to take a cornerback and now most of them are gone. What do? We're still going to take one. That's where I get a little bit concerned with the, well, it's good. We feel like we're stuck. The one thing I think Mel's got wrong here is I don't think, so he's got Dalton Kincaid, the tight end from Utah, going 26 to Dallas. I don't think Dalton Kincaid, in an era where pass-catching tight ends now are huge, is going to fall that far.
Okay. So you think there may be like 2 tight ends going the first 20 picks or something? I mean, what about, he's got Bijan Robinson falling to the Bills at 27. I don't know that Robinson, I know he's a running back, but what some of these smarter people than us who've watched tape on him are saying this is a dude who can not just take the ball and run it up the gut, and this is a guy that can line up out wide, catch a bunch of passes, be a weapon for you. Does he fall to 27? I don't know if he falls that far.
I think because he has a skill set that probably fits into today's game really well, and he's not a traditional, to your point, running back. I think he doesn't fall that far.
Very interesting. The Godfather mock has spoken.
I want a mock.
All right. I'm surprised he did one like the week of I thought he'd maybe wait till after the combine. Maybe they have a pre-combine and then he sort of digest things. In a couple weeks, he does a 3.0.
I think Mel and McShay shortly after the combine might put.
Oh, are they going to do the? Are they going to do the combined one? Where they go back and forth.
I think that's right. Because I think they do. I think they do a post combine. Now we've seen it all. Now we've seen the numbers.
People and then another one. There's going to be a post free agency one too, because
Yep, changes.
The landscape.
We've only started, boys.
Wow, PFF just put out a 2-round mock update today too. Maybe we get to that on Mackie and Judd today.
I love this time of year. I'm not going to lie.
Inject it all, baby. All right. That's a wrap on today's episode. By the way, Thor, so our guy Thor, we will either connect with him later this week or just get a full brain dump NFL Combine version next Tuesday. Reckless draft speculation will continue. We're working around Thor's job with Fantasy Pros and Betting Pros and also his travel schedule. But we will bring Thor back into the mix. We didn't forget about him. And we'll see you guys for some Write That Down predictions on tomorrow's Purple Daily.